Hey guys, Jeff here. It's been a while since I did a little interview with another colleague of mine, and I was pretty excited to do this one. It's a colleague of mine, Babette Haggerty. She's been training forever. Her father is very well known in the dog training arena as well. I want to piggyback kind of off my last video about Channing Tatum and the Belgian Malinois. We'll talk a little bit about that, but also about choosing the right breed for you, which, I kind of poked fun a little bit in my last video. But, we always want to offer and add value to this channel and the content. So we do talk a little bit about some things to consider on how to choose the right breed of dog for you. So it's just a pretty casual conversation, and just like my other videos on this playlist. So sit back, relax, and check it out. Hey guys, I want you to welcome Babette Haggerty with me. Babette is a dog trainer. She was born with a leash in her hand, just so you know, okay? And today we're going to be talking about a couple of topics. One is kind of a spin-off of the video I posted not too long ago about the movie with Channing Tatum and the Belgian Malinois in it. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. But we're also going to, after we have fun with that, we're going to explore a little more in depth into how to choose the right breed for you, because although we like to have fun with this, it's important for us to educate too. So quickly, Babette, you want to just, tell my viewers just a little bit about yourself and your history?
As it pertains to Malinois? Or
no, just you as a dog trainer and your dog experience. Yep.
Okay, well, yeah, it's pretty accurate. I almost was born with a leash in my hand. My mom had a leash in her hand and delivering me. I'm not sure. I know my dad definitely did. So yeah, I was fortunate enough to be born into, be the daughter of Captain Haggerty, which gave me a lot of experiences back then too. I mean, this was, I was born in '68. And back then, people weren't dog trainers. You didn't have dog trainers on every street corner. So I grew up with this dad who was the dog trainer. And then in the '80s, some of the trainers that he trained started to become more popular, and dog training became a little bit more mainstream. It wasn't really quite mainstream. I mean, I remember growing up, going to camp, and even like my freshman year in college, I went out with this guy on this date. And he's like, "So what does your dad do?" I was like, "He's a dog trainer." Like, what do you mean he's a dog trainer? Who does, it was that foreign. And then in '89, I moved to Florida, and I went to a dog show with my mom, and I was in college, and I came home and I called my dad and I said, "I want to get a dog and start breeding dogs. I really missed being around the dogs," because every summer growing up and on my weekends, I would always work for my dad. It was the best gig in town. And he didn't pay me a lot, but he paid me from the moment I woke up to the moment we got home at night. And then he would always take me to good restaurants too. So when you were with my dad, you would never go hungry. Very well. So, he said, "Well, why don't you become a dog trainer?" I'm thinking, you're the dog trainer. Like, nobody else, who trains dogs? And I ended up starting to do it for beer money on the weekends while I was in college. Next thing I knew, I ended up having the largest dog training school in Palm Beach County.
All right, so why we're here to talk about Channing Tatum, his new movie with the Belgian Malinois, and again, for folks watching, I'm going to make sure I put Babette's link below to her top 10 reasons to get a Malinois. It's pretty funny. But that being said, all kidding aside, I mean, this happens all the time over the course. I mean, you're doing this longer than me. You've probably seen a lot more Hollywood influence on spikes in certain breeds of dogs over the decades. It happens all the time. And, Frazier's Jack Russell, yeah, you might be able to get away with it. Homeward Bound's Chance, big, powerful dog, the American Bulldog, but different level than a Mally for sure. I mean, all the cartoons and all that kind of animation stuff will also has created spikes in different breeds, spiking up in as far as popularity and people impulse purchasing or whatever. But right now we're here to talk about the Mallies. What's your take on the movie and Mallies in general?
I haven't seen the movie yet. I think I'm going this weekend. So I've heard it's a great movie, and I did have to ask a friend, does the dog die? I have to know. because if the dog dies, I don't want to see it.
Yeah. Yeah, the dude could die, the dog can't.
Yeah, I don't care about people. Who cares who dies?
Yeah, that's right.
So, so as far as, my feeling, I thought your video was great. I had forgotten about Eddie from Frasier. And as soon as I was watching your video and I saw like, oh yeah, we used to see Jack Russells all the time in the 90s. And look how that worked out. And now that we mentioned Eddie, I'm thinking, and Malinois is kind of like a Jack Russell, except a lot bigger, because they're boing, 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 boing. And no, the thing is, and we have a new employee, and she said today, she said, well, aren't Malinois really smart and they're really easy to train? They're great dogs to have. And I said, look, it's stupid dogs that don't go to dog trainers. It's the smart dogs that keep us in business. And yes, Malinois are really smart, but you have to work them and constantly work them. Yeah. And think of Eddie, 100 times bigger. Well, maybe not 100, but you know what I'm saying.
Right, yeah. And I mean, I found too, especially, the intelligent breeds, especially when they're matched with, that innate desire to work for their humans and that whole eager to please thing, a lot of times it backfires. I think I mentioned this in my video. It backfires because they also get bored very easily if we're not giving them, new information to process and learn.
Absolutely. And people don't understand that. They think, oh, I can exercise my dog, and they think throwing them in the backyard is good exercise. When we were searching for a service dog for my daughter, when we were retiring her shepherd, one of the breeds she wanted to look at was a Malinois. I said, no, but mom, we'll be working him all the time. No, and it's not that I don't love Malinois. I think they're great dogs, but even as a working service dog, at the end of the day, I'm a mom. I've got other dogs. I have a life, it's a lot to manage. I think Malinois may be good for a guy who's single and is going to be single and no kids on the horizon for the next 20 years. And you're going to take that dog to work with you every day, and you're going to run it every day. And you're going to come home at the end of the day and you're going to train it in your backyard for 2 hours, or they need that mental stimulation. It's not just the physical. They need that mental stimulation, and people forget, oh, I'll just dog them 5 miles a day. That's not going to do it. They need the mental stimulation.
Yeah. I mean, I say it all the time to my clients that, and I personally believe that, yes, the physical stimulation and exercise is important, but I think people, especially people who, for whatever reason, they may not have the capacity to stimulate or exercise their dog, regardless of breed, implementing some form of daily mental stimulation will offset any deficiencies in the physical part. And I think a dog like a Mally, I mean, you could literally run that dog 5 miles at like 6-7 miles an hour. You're coming home, you still need to address the mind. Right?
Absolutely. That's the thing. You do. I mean, it's not a matter of exercise. And what a lot of people forget too is that, you can run your dog 5 miles a day, but then after a month or two, it's going to become 6 miles a day and then 7 miles a day, because like runners, people are training for a marathon. They don't just go out and start running 26 miles a day. They're out there 1 mile, 2 miles, 3 miles, 5 miles. And the more you build their endurance, the longer they're going to have to run before you get the same result.
Yep. Oh,
Love your pity.
I'm a dog trainer. You're not supposed to be jumping on me.
Notice I don't have any of my dogs here. Nobody pays me to train my dogs.
Yeah, I know. Well, it's funny you bring that up, because I mean, well, we're dog trainers, right? Now, I always tell people we're like mechanics. Like, you never see a mechanic driving around in like this pristine Mercedes-Benz. It's always some jalopy that always needs work, right?
That is true. And they have like 10 cars in the backyard that don't run.
Right, because we're working on everybody else's car. We don't always have time for ours. And, I bring that up because, especially in a movie like this or any other movie or sitcom, the amount of time that is put in to producing those results, I don't think people notice. It's like dog training TV shows. I won't get into names. There was a male and a prominent female figure dog trainer on TV, right? They think that 23 minutes with commercials in between and you're done. No, it takes time to get to the end result.
I had a lady many years ago. This was in South Florida. She drove over from the west coast of Florida for me to train her Vizsla, who had a dog aggression problem. And when she dropped the dog off, I said, look, this is what it's going to look like in 3 weeks, and by the way, you're not going to be able to bring this dog to the dog park. We're going to have, steps that we have to take, and maybe best case scenario, we can get the dog here. Worst case scenario, we're going to get the dog at this point. And I laid it all out for her. I was very open and honest with her. And when she picks up the dog, and I'm reminding her, like, okay, this is what you have to do when you go home. I'm going to see you in 2 weeks. Remember, can't do this, can't do that. Da, da, da. She looked at me and she said, well, I thought the problem would be solved. And I'm thinking, well, I already told you it wouldn't be. I told you to get better, and that this was a process. And then she said to me, she's like, yeah, but I watched so-and-so on TV and he solves it in like a half an hour. And she was honest, like she was serious. And
Dead serious.
Like, okay, like,
yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I tell people, like, even Lassie wasn't as good as she was. And no disrespect to the weather waxes. There's a lot of cuts. There's a lot of stuff that's going on behind the scenes that you don't see.
Yep. Yeah. Anyone who's done even has any experience in production or like film or editing, like you're taking, 30, 35 hours of video to get a half hour of solid production value to present to people, and I tell people all the time, when they whatever the behavior is, what's required. I said, well, what's required is as many opportunities that you can give your dog to work through the behavior, right? So if it's 5 opportunities that you have to work with, you need to adjust your expectations based on the amount of opportunities that you're willing to work through. If you have 100 repetitions and things are getting better, every time it gets better over the course of those repetitions, you're going to get to a higher level of behavior. So again, and it's like doorbells. Dogs that go crazy with the doorbell. I'm like, well, how often do you get visitors? Once in a blue moon. It's not going to get better. I'm just Sorry. So anyway, getting back to the Mally, obviously we joke around, but, on a serious level, and obviously I'm a pit bull guy and I love them. And I do think they're one of the easiest breeds to train, and not because of their public stigma, but because they're powerful athletic animals. I don't believe they're for everyone, right? I don't believe Rhodesian Ridgebacks are for everyone. I don't believe Great Danes are for everyone. I don't believe that Rat Terriers are for everyone, especially if you garden, right? So, we joke around about this stuff, but there are, we could talk about, 100-200 breeds that aren't for everyone, right?
Of any breed that's for everyone. I really don't.
Yeah, and the Mally, I tell people, look, whatever you think a dog is, right? The Malinois is it's just and you mentioned it earlier, what type of person. I always say, look, if it's a professional handler, someone who can work the dog, maybe someone with that has some kind of function that the dog can perform, or someone who is like uber active, hikers, bikers, runners, things along those lines. Those are the type of people that could probably handle it. But for the average domestic home, I think it's just a recipe for disaster.
It absolutely is. There was one girl that I know down in Florida, great girl, a friend of mine, not close friends, but we're friends. And she'd gotten a Malinois after I left Florida. And I know she made a comment with her picture of her Malinois, who's now 14. And she said, now she's starting to slow down. If I recall, when she first got her dog, I forget the dog's name, she was taking that dog to the trainer every day for 4 or 5 years, just to keep it working. Not a daycare setting, but like a training setting that the dog is actually getting work. They're increasing the skill set. They're teaching the dog new behaviors to just keep it mentally satisfied and fulfilled.
Yeah, sure. So on that note, obviously we want to offer some value other than our criticisms of people who might impulsively get a Mally. I always try to help people with breed selection, right? Because I'm a firm believer that they tell us, that breed characteristics do come into play when people are trying to figure out what kind of animal they want. And I always I'll let you talk about what you think. I just want to preface that I always tell people, looks should be last on your list.
Absolutely.
That's just my opinion. So you want to throw in some of your suggestions on how someone should choose the right breed of dog?
Look at your activity level. But actually, most importantly, I would say look at what your life is going to look like over the next 10 to 15 years. You know, a great example is all the people that went out and got pandemic dogs during the pandemic. And now they are going back to work and they're getting rid of the dogs. Like, did you really think we were going to be in lockdown for 15 years?
Yeah.
So don't look at your life right now. Take a view of what will it be in the next 15 years. Will you have children? Will you have grandchildren? Do you plan on retiring and living in a small apartment? Like, whatever you think your life might look like over the next 15 years, and decide on that lifestyle, not your immediate lifestyle. So you want to look at the activity level. You want to look at the grooming. I didn't get a standard poodle for a long time because I didn't have the money to spend on professional grooming or the time to do it myself. So, you know, grooming is an expensive proposition. It can be very expensive. So your activity level, you know, and what personality do you really want? You know, I know people are going to say, and going back on the Malinois, well, I want the dog for protection. Actually, somebody texted me the other day, a friend of mine in Florida, would a Malinois be a good dog for protection for me? And I said, absolutely not. And for what she wants, you know, it's not like she lives in this neighborhood where she needs to be on constant watch or whatever it might be. And she doesn't have a jewelry store to guard or anything like that. She just needs a dog to bark. You know, that's all she needs. I'm like, oh, you know, so when people think that they want a dog for protection, do you really need a loaded gun? Or do you just need something that looks intimidating? Or do you just need to be the house that has the cameras outside? Because it's a completely different ball game. You know, any barking dog is going to protect your house for the most part. Police officers will tell you that all the time. You want protection? Just get a dog that barks and you're in good shape. You know, if you want a dog to attack on command, then okay, consider a Malinois, consider a German Shepherd, that type of dog. So the activity level, what's your lifestyle, the grooming, you know, and what kind of activity can you provide for the dog? What can you financially afford for the dog as far as activity? Can you afford to send your dog to daycare all the time? Can you afford a year's worth of training? How much time do you have to put into the training and the care for the dog, especially the first year? People forget that first year is a very expensive year.
Yeah, and I mean, even food. I mean, people don't realize. I mean, you can literally get a 35-pound mutt from the shelter, and it might cost you 25 bucks a month to feed. If you get a large breed, you're pushing 150 a month.
Absolutely.
You know, so cost of sure, it definitely comes into play for sure. And you made a good point as far as the first year. You know, especially, you know, people always talk about early socialization, and I don't know if you've experienced this too, but I found that people, if they get puppies, they socialize the puppy, but stop at like 5 months old. And I'm like, look, this is a skill that you need to continue to improve and give. Again, going back to opportunities, you need to continue. How much did you socialize your dog, and how many environments, and what set? You know what I mean? So I think a lot of times people don't realize the work, especially in the first year, if it's a young, you know, if it's a puppy or a young dog. That's a really good point you bring up.
Yeah, they don't realize it.
Yeah.
And I do want to touch on something too, and there's I got an alert from the AKC about something that's going to regulate breeders even more. And I just want to touch on that a little bit. I have more than enough times have had people that say to me, oh, I don't want to go to so-and-so breeder that shows their dogs because they're charging me $3,500 for the dog. I can go over to the next state. I'm not going to say what the next state over is, and go to a farm and find a breeder out in the countryside. And when you put those two dogs side by side, I'll take a German Shepherd, for example. Yeah, I can go to the other side of the New Jersey state line, and I can find a family that has a farm that breeds German Shepherds, and I might pay $800 for it. And I see that dog and I'm like, that dog's going to be crippled and, you know, has not had genetic testing. The parents weren't checked for hips, nothing like that. Or I can go spend $3,500 with a great breeder who I look at that dog, I know it's healthy, I know it's sound. The average dog owner is not going to know what a well-bred dog looks like. And they think, oh, well, the vet checked it out. Yeah, but the vet didn't OFA the hips, and the sire and the dam were not, their hips were not certified, their elbows were not checked. If
they were even seen.
Well, that's true too. So
Yeah.
you spend a little bit of money now, and you're going to save yourself a lot of heartache later on.
Yeah. And for my audience, Babette's being polite. She's talking about puppy mills in Pennsylvania. Just so you know.
Yeah, I try to be.
People who follow me, they know I'm in rescue, so yeah, you could bash puppy mills, and it's ironic because I do have, I have friends who are also breeders. They're, or have been in their past, and now they're more into rescue. And even back when like puppy pet shop sales were big. This is when I was probably a little bit, or maybe on the cusp of me getting into rescue. I was training for a while. I started getting into rescue, so I still had a lot of those friends. And I remember when it started ballooning, they were like, I don't know, these people, they say that, oh, well, we got it from store X, and they said they got it from a reputable breeder. And all my friends told me, there isn't a reputable breeder out there that would sell their puppies to a pet store.
Absolutely.
It just won't happen, right? And I'm not going to get into breeding and versus rescue, because that's a whole nother thing. I mean, my thing is, especially nowadays pandemic puppies, forget about it. I mean, we definitely have a lot more inventory this year than we did that last year in rescue. But even the rise of breed specific rescues, there's so many now that, service dog rejects, as I call them, right? They're amazing animals. They're just not good enough to be service dogs. Like, there's so many ways to get good quality, healthy animals. So, yeah. So thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah, and it's sad too, because I know a lot of the good breeders have been forced underground. I remember when I was looking for a poodle for my daughter, I know the dog world. I went to the Poodle Club of America. I started researching and couldn't find anybody. Like, where's the breeders directory? There was a time where you could look in the Gazette and you'd find the local breeder, or you'd go to the dog show. Everything's hidden. But if I wanted to type in poodle breeders, I'd get, I could send money to Minnesota. I could send money to Pennsylvania. I can adopt a poodle in Pennsylvania for $800, And, it's very sad. And the average dog owner doesn't realize what they're buying.
Yeah. And you can't trust the kennel clubs anymore, because they're basically just a directory of advertisers. That's really what it's turning into.
Yeah, it's very sad.
Yeah. So, I mean, and plus dogs like Mallies, for instance, you should have a hard time finding one. That would be the saving grace.
Well, it was interesting. Back in the 90s, it was the early 90s, I was the Southeast Regional Coordinator for the American Belgian Malinois Club. So I was in charge of the rescues that came in through, I had Florida, Alabama, Georgia, and I guess that was it. Maybe the Carolinas too. I can't even remember. But I don't even think we had 5 come in a year. I can't imagine what it's going to be another year or two. I can't imagine what it is now. And I also wonder, there are a lot of people who breed Malinois that are really into the sport of dogs. And I really hope, and that's great. And they're great at what they do. And I don't know them, a lot of them personally. I hope though that, and I know they sell their puppies for a ton of money. I really hope that they're very discriminate in who they sell puppies to over the next few years. Because unless you're in the dog sport world, don't buy one.
Yeah.
Not the 10-year-old one. They live a long time. They'll live 15, 16 years of age.
Oh, there's tons of them on Pet Farm. They might not be full Mallies, but they got the Mallee muzzle. They might have a little muddy looking on the back end, but still fun, energetic, playful animals without that 6th gear, so to speak. Like, they have 4 gears, manageable for most people. And I mean, again, I'm a pit bull guy. I would not get a Mallee. I wouldn't. I mean, I think they're gorgeous. I think if something in my life changed, and maybe I had just 1 or 2 dogs, and I wasn't training as many as I am every month, and I could see that happening for the rest of my life, then I might get one to dedicate time to. I'm a dog trainer. I'm very confident in my ability. I've handled dogs of all behavior levels, much like you have. I would not get one.
We had a puppy that came in, I don't know, she was probably here about a year ago. And she came for a few months for training. And the owners would have kept her here longer, but it gets expensive after a while. And we nicknamed her the dryer dog, because in between her workouts, you know, and we would work her and we'd work her hard, and then she'd go back into her crate. She would spin constantly, but she sounded like if you ever put sneakers in the dryer.
Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, and she had this rhythm, and it would be like boom, 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 and we'd hear it all day long. They put on CBD oil, and this would be on CBD oil after her workouts. She dry her dog, dry her dog, dry her dog all day long.
Yeah.
She's a nice dog, and they got her from a good breeder. And the guy works in what does he do? Like construction or plumbing or something. He's taking her to work every day, and it's working out well. But he's also in the position where he can take her everywhere he goes, and he needs to, because she's going to be a dryer dog in their house and just spin and spin and spin because she's not getting enough mental stimulation.
Yeah. Well, I think we could wrap it up there. And just to, I mean, anyone watching to this point, if you do anything when getting a dog, just stop for a minute, take a step back. There is no reason why you can't do a few minutes of research. I mean, we have everything at our fingertips nowadays, right? You know, like Babette said, think about all the characteristics you want in a breed. Worry about looks later. You'd be surprised that if you write down characteristics, and like, if you gave me characteristics of a dog you wanted, I can give you pictures of dogs that fit that qualification, and then you can choose based on that. You know, so again, when in doubt, just take a step back, pause for a minute, do some research. This is not an impulse buy for a pack of gum at the supermarket. Again, like Babette said, this is a 15-year commitment. So anyway, Babette, thank you very much for joining. I appreciate it. And maybe we'll come back soon for some other topics. I know that I have a couple in mind that I'm sure you'd love to talk about.
Oh yeah, I could get up on my soapbox and
yeah, I'd love to talk about operant conditioning with you at some point.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, we could go some, yeah.
I would be happy to discuss that with you.
Yeah, you know where I'm going with that, right?
Absolutely do know where you're going with that. That sounds
Yeah.
like a good time.
Yeah, so we'll have to offend some people.
Jeff, all you have to do is change your last name to Haggerty, and people will be mad at you.
Fair enough. Well, thanks again. I will see you soon, Babette, okay?
See you, Jeff.
And everyone watching, don't forget, I'll pop Babette's information below. Make sure you take a look at her links, check out her videos, subscribe to her YouTube channel as well. And I will see you guys soon. And again, if you like my channel, consider subscribing. Give me a thumbs up for this video as well. And I'll see you soon.